Wemden zamden kesum buwem komar wadas san doi we sinyonya patkuya nyamo hutra yin. We need to be very, very careful, especially when we lose our identity. There won't be no more services for us. Well, just like the non-Indian out there.
And thank you for joining me on the Resilient Podcast. So, before her schedule filled up, I had the opportunity to sit with Chief Judge Claudette White from the Fort Yuma Quechan Nation. Here it is. So, you're living on San Manuel?
Well, I'm living right near the reservation, but right now I'm at home on the
Uh-huh.
reservation. But I have a home. It's just off property, just off reservation because they have a limited land base,
Uh-huh.
and they don't even have enough room for their citizens right now. They're just creating pads for them. But I live right near the reservation, just like literally with around the block.
Okay, like in town or something, or is that what they would call it?
Yeah, it would be considered like town, and the reservation is just literally on a hill,
Uh-huh.
like on a mountain on a hill, and extends a little bit down to where the some neighborhoods are, and right there is where they have their casino, and they have ongoing project right now called Yamava. They're expanding their casino and entertainment center, and including a hotel. They never had one. I got full time employment there, but I'm also still managing our court. The tribe's on a year and 8 months not hired anybody yet, so I'm managing our court and hearing our cases too
Oh,
for
wow.
free.
So I forgot about that. You're doing both right now.
Yeah, I volunteered to do it, and everybody's telling me that's probably why they're not hiring nobody, because you're doing it for free, and I come home at my own cost even. So
Oh,
I
wow. So
think
you're not getting paid for the travel? No.
no, not getting paid for none of it.
So just to do what you're doing right now for free. So, I mean, that's definitely something that we really need to thank you for.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I know not everybody feels that way. I mean, there's a good chunk of people who are real appreciative and thankful, and that always makes me, more committed to what I do. And I know what I'm doing. Like, we have a lot of, even when we get a judge, like, they don't know the community either.
Mhm.
That's my biggest concern, and that's why I went up to council and basically had to grovel to even just stay on with the tribe, because they were not upset with me in terms of how I transitioned out from the tribe, and so had to grovel just for the opportunity to come work for free. But I was telling them that even with the pro tem judge, they're not going to get somebody that knows the community and is willing to act and make decisions the way that I would be willing to do that, because they don't know the community.
Right, on behalf of the people, like the best judgment there.
Yeah, like I told him, I said all of our judges' responsibilities is to make a decision based on the facts presented to them, and based on some of the petitions that come in from lay people, there's like next to no information on it. I said, and a judge's early inclination would be to say, well, there's not sufficient information or basis for me to make a finding, therefore I'm dismissing the action. I said, as opposed to me asking questions or asking for follow up and telling them, hey, I need this kind of information. Please ask them this or ask them that on a temporary basis, or holding an emergency hearing, like really going above and beyond to get enough facts to make a decision on. And that's not a job, the requirement for a judge. So,
Yeah, and an outsider as well because they would have no
right,
clue, and especially a lot of the families that are out there, so then you know how to handle the situations a little bit better.
right. I know how to garner the kinds of questions and information that we need. But like I said, that's not something generally a judge would be doing. They just take the facts before them and make a decision. And if it's insufficient information, then they'll ends up in a dismissal. So that's why I was telling the tribe, I really need to stay on right now until you get somebody full time that is better acclimated to understand the community, because as it sits, like that's not going to happen.
How would they even go about finding another judge,
Well,
like
they would
somebody to
be
sit?
right now. They've been they're they've advertised, and so they posted in various locations early on. I think they had a third party who was supposedly trying to recruit and look for a judge. The unfortunate thing is they lowered the salary. They didn't lower it much, but they lowered the
Hmm.
salary. I think they were offering $65,000 a year. My salary was like 70, and people aren't willing to come for that. You go to school, you get educated, you got student loans and other responsibilities and expectations with that level of education, and what they're offering is just it's not reasonable. So then when they posted and advertised, I think they got two applicants that were tribal members that didn't have any experience or education commensurate to what the position requires.
Right.
I was telling the council, I was like, you need to at least raise it to 100,000. Like that's there's no way you're gonna get anybody to come that's competent or worth having. And I stayed. I got my own home on the reservation, and I didn't have some of the costs that somebody else, moving to the area or having to pay for would be
Right.
expecting for the position. I said, like, it's my own people. I was willing to take that kind of pay, but that's not reasonable and that's not standard in terms of the industry and position or the education level.
So is it open to all, like, or
It is.
is it open just to mainly native?
No, it's actually a position according to the law and order code that it could be tribal and non-tribal. The requirements are different depending on whether or not they're a non-tribal person or a tribal person. Tribes willing to hire a lay person, they just require certain proficiency. But if you're non-tribal, then they require greater requirements. And so there's some discretion and opportunity, like to employ somebody who doesn't have the formal education, but you have to have a certain amount of experience and make certain demonstrations and proficiency.
So do you
So
have any recommendations for the tribe as far as like who they should, reach out to? I mean, aside from the pay, obviously that's going to be like something that's a huge factor, but
I have some recommendations in terms of interim, just for even to bringing on more pro tems for conflict cases, because it's only myself and another pro tem right now, and we have cases that we're conflicted on only because we've already heard the case, and they're asking for a recusal or they're asking for another judge. They don't like the decision, not even on an appeal basis, but just like they don't like the judgment. They want another judge, and so we would be precluded if we are gonna, grant what it is they're requesting. So I have some recommendations, and early on I had challenges with the previous council member who was just not comfortable or wanting to move forward with somebody I recommended. They submitted a letter of interest. They're actually work for California Indian Legal Services, probably at least 20 plus years of experience, but uh, the concern was that I knew them personally, therefore they were my friend. And so just a lot of uneducated assumptions about the circumstances. But the reality is the Indian legal community in Indian country is small. Everybody's probably knows of each
everybody, right?
other. Yeah, we either know of each other, we've heard of each other, or it's rare that we haven't, but we probably have people in common. And just like in any field, when you have people, but even a smaller circle of individuals based on, there's not a lot of Native people that hold JDs. Like 6% of our population hold graduate degrees, so that's a small circle.
Very small. So girl, I was just reading not to like just recently, just looking up for my own, personal, and it I was just wondering like how many Native Americans are in like the actual judicial system. And I think just last year it was saying something around maybe 5,000 like lawyers, and then just very few judges. I mean, I obviously came up on your name because I know who you are, and from being, we're from the same res and whatnot. But I mean, there was only like one other one that she was appointed by Obama, Diane.
Oh yeah,
Diane,
Diane
who
Hua.
yeah, Humetua. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very few. And then I was also looking up, too, just how many Native American or just how many women are in, the position like yours. And it was
Hmm.
very few. Like it was like next to nothing. Just
No, yeah, it is. And one of the sad things is a lot of tribes throughout the U.S. I think they, the whole crab in a bucket mentality and the their own reflections on their self-worth. They put that off, to their own people, and are very hesitant to hire their own people. And it's difficult, for one, just to work for your people in general when you're in the community, but it's even more difficult to have that kind of level of authority and position within your own tribal structure and maintain it. And I think just a lot of opinions about you not being capable and not trusting you, and those are, I think, self-reflections as opposed to, actual candidates' abilities. And so that's, it's difficult. And I see a lot of times tribal judges are non-tribal, usually older white men, and I've run into a good number of tribal judges too, but there's a lot of non-Indians in positions of chief judges for tribes. I think
Yeah.
that's just based on their own personal feelings as opposed to really giving people, their own people, the opportunity.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, how can you put, this into the hands, especially of not just a white judge, but just a non-native in general?
Hmm.
Like, how can you give them that authority to, I guess, what is it, to preside over the people,
Hmm.
over the judgments or whatnot? So when I think of anybody, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I know a judge. She's a chief judge now. She's badass, and you've had a long journey. I just wanted to know, like, what was it that made you get up that day and think, like, to embark on this journey?
I think the biggest catalyst to even get me thinking about law school was when I was on our tribal council. Early on in life, I had the opportunity when I got elected as a writing candidate. I literally made the decision about 3 days before the tribal elections to run as a council member, and went around from house to house, handing out information and talking to people, asking for the opportunity to get on our tribal council. And just prior to that election, it had been long standing that all of our tribal councils were generally elders, men, older people, people who had been in government, our tribal government, for a long time. And so
Yeah.
there were a couple of new candidates who were running. I think there was a male who was running for presidency, and I think he was probably just under 60 in his mid 50s. And then I was 22, and I was like, yeah, I really want to try this. Like, what do I got to lose? Was in my last year of my undergraduate doing criminal justice out at NAU Yuma, and just prior to that, I changed my major from social work to criminal justice. And so I took the opportunity and I got elected overwhelmingly just as a writing candidate. Through that process, we were working on the Ward Valley, which was the trying to protect the Ward Valley area from a low-level nuclear waste facility. It was a tri-state compact, including the state of California, and Department of Health Services. California had already done a land transfer of land in the Mojave Desert in Ward Valley to a big industry for the really the building of this low level nuclear waste facility that was going to house waste for California, Arizona, and another state. And it was above an aquifer, and the area that it was in actually happened to be a part of the area that we would cycle through as we pass. It was in the spiritual pathway of Ikwame, our creation mountain. And so when we had the opportunity to like fight against that issue, I was one of the main people early on because I was affiliated with the tribe as a council member, traveling to Washington D.C. to meet with legislators and staffers, and holding these different rallies, trying to bring about awareness as to why it shouldn't happen, making the cultural argument. During my time in Washington D.C., we were meeting and we were at a Senate hearing, and we were requesting to offer testimony as a tribe, and I was there present for that purpose. And they didn't give us the opportunity, or we didn't get time for it. Instead of asking the tribes directly, they asked the industry side, what are the tribes saying, and how do they feel? And they're like, hold on a second. I stood up and I was like, we're here, we want to talk, we asked to talk.
Yeah,
And
we have a voice.
yeah, exactly. It's like we want to speak for ourselves, and because I wasn't uh I was not approved to offer testimony, like I got dragged out of the hearing. But through the process of going through those meetings and sitting down with, legislators and staff, they weren't interested in hearing what tribal leaders had to say. They were only interested in hearing what our non-Indian attorneys had to say. And they were not the ones that were in a position to make those cultural arguments because they didn't understand them. They couldn't articulate and relate to how that impacted us as people. And so through that process, I was like, man, if I ever am going to lead our tribe in a greater capacity, I need to go back to school. And so then I was thinking about doing it, and later transitioned over to our gaming side. During my time at council, we opened up our gaming operation, and I was actually there in a couple times in meetings when we were dealing with regulatory issues. Like Arizona Department of Gaming, one of the staffers had made a comment saying, well, have your attorney meet with our attorney and then we'll do this. And the tribal gaming office was saying, well, she's actually not our attorney, she's our compliance auditor before I became the GM. And, it just kept coming almost full circle where the inclination for me to go to school was kind of just there. And I actually, ASU Indian Law program had reached out to me. They actually hadn't even applied yet. They reached out to me and said that my name was recommended as a possible candidate for consideration to go to law school. And they invited me up for an interview and to tour the campus and to see what they had to offer, sit in a few classes. And I was really excited about the opportunity. And
Yeah, they
I
reached
thought,
out to you. Like, that's awesome.
yeah,
And how old were you at that time?
I think I was like maybe 25 by then, 26. And it was interesting though, because here I was prepared to sell myself. Everything you read about academia, you got to sell yourself, you got to do, all
You had to
these things.
go through the whole process, and it's
Yeah,
a
make yourself uncomfortable, kind of goes against the grain of how you're taught in terms of, being feeling arrogant, just to tell all these positive good things about yourself. But I was building up the process
yeah.
of doing that, and they were telling me, well, actually, we want to sell ourselves to you. We want to tell you why you should come to our school. And I was like, holy smokes, this is way different than I thought. And we'll help you, and we're willing to offer you a graduate academic scholarship to come, and we can try to obtain additional scholarships for your book fees and help assist you with living costs. But I had a real awesome opportunity. And so I went ahead and took the LSAT and put in an application. I got accepted, but it was at a time when we were actually considering gaming in California. And so we were trying to hurry up and put up a temporary building because we had compacted and we didn't want to waste years or time for a compact. And so I waited for us to hire somebody and bring somebody on so I could work with them and let them transition to the position before I went to law school. So I deferred a year, and then I ended up going to school the next year. But it was just really the desire to want to serve the tribe in a greater capacity and do more as a tribal leader. And I figured at some point in my life I was hoping to serve as our tribal president. And I've not yet done that, but the opportunity right after graduation opened up where the position of chief judge became vacant. And so, I was thankful to have my degree in hand to be able to take the risk and just throw my name in the hat as well for that position.
So I mean, that's a very young age. I mean, so 25, 26, uh, ASU Indian Law reaching out to you, and just before that, you were there for the initial like infrastructure of the Paradise Casino, correct?
Yeah, I was on the in 95, 96, and we actually, the compact for Arizona had been secured, but we had already spent a couple of years just previous councils, discussing what that was going to look like. When our team got on and our administration came on, we actually were the ones to one create the core on North code and make the tribal gaming ordinance, and then also to find a development company to work with, and then later the opening of the California side, which was adjacent initially before the queue opened. But it was a pretty exciting time to, be affiliated to that process and just to early on see the development of, the court, the police department, the gaming ordinance, all these bodies of law that really affect and impact how we operate our tribe today and the things that impact our tribe. But I had the opportunity as a young person to participate in that. When I got elected to council, I had been the youngest person ever elected, and I'm still holding that title. So I'm real thankful for the opportunity that, our people gave me to serve. And I've been really blessed to maintain the job I have had with the tribe as their chief judge. And now I'm an associate judge. We changed the title so they can have the vacancy to look. But I held a position for 12 years, and the life of a chief judge in any jurisdiction is generally not that long. And to be able to survive my own tribe despite politics and the all the issues over the course of time, hearing several thousand cases over that time frame, there's going to be some unhappy people, and not
Right.
everybody walks away happy. And so the fact that I was able to survive that without playing politics and just hoping that my credibility and my honesty and my sincerity would, stand for itself. I'm thankful, that the tribe's entrusted me with that awesome responsibility to serve in that capacity.
And so being where you are today, 12 years in, just with our tribe alone, uh, like what do you think like the difference is like for people who don't know as far as like how like a sovereign nation versus like just a regular state like Arizona or like California, like what the difference is as far as like handling cases, like the ones that you've overseen or like how we are culturally
Right.
versus
Yeah, there's a huge difference in terms of the way tribal courts operate and the way that state and federal courts operate. Um, if for most tribes, but that's not all tribes. Some tribes are very westernized. The jurisprudence you see in some tribal courts is almost no different than what you see in state courts. But each tribe has the autonomy to make their own decisions for themselves and what they think is best going to serve, their citizens and their members. For the Quechan Tribal Court, and most tribal courts, they're considered courts of equity. We're just looking for a resolution. And so I think depending on the issue, cases are handled differently and the focus is different. When you consider law and the rule of law and the support for it and the way that law works is law only works because people are willing to abide by it. When people are not willing to abide by something that they don't agree with, then there's chaos. And so you have to develop laws that really embody the value and the priorities of its citizens are the people that it governs. And so for tribal communities, they try to develop laws that are consistent to the things that are important to them or that they value. And that's one of the beauties. And I think the really neat things about tribal courts is having that kind of autonomy to not just be stuck with the Western body of law, like something that you might see similar in state court, where quite often people are just processed and things are just adjudicated with no real resolution for, the people that are subject to those cases. And so in tribal courts, a lot of the work that is being done is like restorative justice. We look at, how do we restore the individual who's been harmed? How do we help the person who's created that harm, or can we change behavior? How do we restore the community and the tribe? It's not just based on a punitive approach, which is often what you see in state courts. And so on the
right where
tribal
they're just
side,
there to punish you and keep punishing
yeah,
you where you're
warehouse you, waste
we're actually
time.
trying to like make the person like realize like what it is that they're doing because like most likely the reason why these people are in trouble time and time again is like it stems from the beginning, like all their traumas and what they had to endure through their lifetime, and then really that's all they know, so they keep on doing the same
Right,
thing they know. So then based on the way we do things, like tribal courts do things, we're just trying to, like you said, we're trying to restore the person and trying
right.
to get them the help that they need, right?
Right. And most often that's, our focus. Of course, we run into situations sometimes where people don't want to comply or they're unwilling, but that doesn't mean that we don't, we might have to take punitive action in some instances, but that doesn't mean simultaneously we're not offering services or trying to change behavior. One of the things that we see, happen in state courts, and state courts are making some modifications and changes in terms of, creating drug courts and veterans courts and things, processes to deal with specific sets of issues for individuals, which is good. But if somebody's ran through drug court once or twice, sometimes the opportunity is off the table. In tribal courts, one of the things we're saying is like, somebody's prosecuted 5, 6, 10 times in a system, and you don't see a change behavior. What's wrong with continuing to try treatment or rehabilitation? You're gonna probably get some improvement or a different outcome than you would by just warehousing somebody, because that's not working either. But in the state system, you get a couple opportunities, and hey, the opportunity's off the table. In the tribal setting, we're trying to do different. We're trying to create a better outcome for everybody and truly change behavior. And so I think that's a huge difference also in terms of being in tribal court, the formality of going through, a process and a hearing in state court. If you're not self-represented, or if you have an attorney on an issue, there are rules that you have to apply and that you have to abide by. You're not an attorney, and like, let's say I go into state court and I got a civil issue and I'm not comfortable talking. I bring my mom with me or my grandma, and my grandma's trying to tell the judge what I want to say but can't say. And the judge has to say, well, I'm sorry, they're not a party to this case. They're not being recognized. They're not a licensed attorney. They're not, representing you here in court. We can't hear from them unless there's a witness. They can't testify for you. Well, in tribal court, when we run into those situations, we try to apply custom and tradition. We have in our law and order code a provision that gives us the opportunity where somebody can argue custom and tradition. And as part of that process, like I've had cases where, both sides walk in with maybe a grandfather and a mom or an auntie or somebody to speak for, to come and speak for them. And these people are not members of our tribal bar. And I'll tell them in court, as a formality, in order to be here as an advocate and a spokesperson, you're supposed to be a licensed member of our tribal bar. You are not, but in recognition of tribal custom and tradition, where heads of families speak on behalf of their family or their family members, we're going to suspend the rules of court, and I'm going to allow you to address the court. That wouldn't happen in state court.
It wouldn't,
You know,
right?
it's a powerful opportunity for tribes to create these systems that, one, give people their voice and give them an opportunity to be heard. If you see in state court, dependency issues, say for example, in state court, mom has an attorney, dad has an attorney, there might be an appointed CASA, there might be a guardian ad litem, there's a prosecutor, and there's a CPS representative, or an attorney general. There's all these players in a system, and the voice of the people actually get taken away. And so, in tribal court, it's a more direct action, giving people the opportunity to have voices and directly be heard.
It's
And
culturally based.
yeah, it's culturally based, and I think we get better outcomes. And people sometimes, even if they don't get the judgment they want, the fact that they were listened to and that they were heard, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it might make them change their mind and want to get help because, they're giving the opportunity of their family so for the courts to hear them out, and it might change their mind like later on, like, hey, I am going to get this treatment, or
Right,
I am going to make a change in my life or whatnot. So
right.
that's pretty powerful that
Yeah, and the one
we are
one thing
different in
I
that
think that
way.
right, and one thing I really like about tribal courts is the adaptability. Like there may be some instances where, it's appropriate to have a hearing that's completely westernized, and we have the law and the provisions to make that happen. You walk into tribal court and it's not any different than being in a different setting. But when we have the opportunity and we're able to use discernment on how we're going to handle an issue based on tribal custom and tradition, and bringing in third parties to help bring resolution or to counsel or to mediate or to offer recommendations in court, then we have the autonomy to do that. One of the things we're working on for the Quechan Tribal Court right now is to build a traditional panel, hopefully of elders, but also even just of maybe some young people, And we're giving the elders the opportunity to kind of determine the composition of that panel, because they're saying, well, we're not going to be here forever either. Maybe we need to include some young people. And I said, we can call it a traditional panel where we give people with disputes in the community the opportunity to choose like what which body they want to hear their issue. Maybe they don't want to go through tribal court and file a formal petition and include a list of witnesses and take it this Western route. Maybe they want to just come in and bring their issue to the traditional panel or the elders and let them make a decision that's binding for them and be heard differently. And so we're trying to create that process in tribal court where it's not just the judge, but the judge can help guide that process and, let the community through the elders or through this panel make a decision. But there's a lot of opportunity to incorporate tribal custom and tradition and get back to settling issues the way that we might have been. I look at that as almost like repatriation, of old ways. And so
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that we're working on now.
So what obstacles are you having to overcome with getting that uh or to put that in place?
I think there's been good support from our tribal council. I had reached out to them recently. The last administration was okay with us moving forward with discussions with different cultural groups on the reservation. I recently approached the new administration, and they were also very supportive. So I told them I was uncomfortable to start these conversations and meetings back up with the elders until I had the permission to move forward, because I don't want to waste their time if this is not going to be something that's viable or considered for formal inclusion and passage. And so I think it's just a matter of formality and figuring out what that system and model is going to look like and truly what they're comfortable with, because it's not the court or myself dictating. It's actually giving them ownership and opportunity to have a true voice and role in terms of what that's going to look like. But I was explaining to them the number of ways I can see that working in tribal court, because I told them one of the things I would like for the panel to do is also to help us with, first time offender in criminal court, help make
Right.
recommendations on traditional activities or cultural activities or things that they think might be appropriate to help reform that individual while they're going through criminal court. And we can include that as part of their sentence. Maybe somebody might be disattached or disassociated from the tribe and not have close familial ties to the tribe or be aware of who they are. And so we were saying maybe we can sit down and have a family tree and they can tell them about their relatives, and the people and the good that they've done for the community and the tribe, and tie them into that, so they have a sense of where they're coming from. In Indian country, and our tribe is no exception, we have a low death, or we expire early. We don't have a long life
Exactly. There's so many
expectation
things
for
that are
Native
hindering
Americans.
our lives. Yeah.
Right, right. It's like 55. Life expectation is normal. And I got a sister who just turned 50, and she's all like, "Geez, five away," and like in
That's
terms of
scary.
her life expectancy, and it is. Yeah, it's very real though, and those are the circumstances and the realities that we live with in Indian country. And so, in terms of our people, a lot of people get left behind. They're orphaned early, or they grow up not knowing parents because grandparents raised them and grandparents passed and they have no connection, they have no roots. And so where I was telling the elders, I said this would be a good opportunity to really empower people and connect them back to the tribe. But I'm really excited that it wasn't even myself who initiated that. It was the elders who approached our tribal council saying, hey, we want to be more involved with the court, but we don't understand it. We don't know all the things that are going on, but we want to help.
They want us to teach them. That is
Yeah, I was
different.
excited.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
very different.
an awesome opportunity. But early on, when I came onto the bench, I did go to meet with the elders to ask them, long time ago when we had problems, what did we do? Who led that resolution, or who,
Yeah, I
what did
was
we do to
just going to
solve an
ask that.
issue? How did we punish ourselves, and what would we do? They talked about banishments or making people stay away for periods of time, and just the early ways that they were punished through, through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the criminal offenses through them. They were telling us it was frowned upon to not be married but be living together. One of the tribal elders was telling me Yeah, they used to send a bus, round us up, and take us up to El Centro, make us all get married, then bring us back. I was like, oh my goodness. She was like, yeah, sometimes we'd be hiding because we knew we were
Because
together
I
in
don't even
school.
like who I'm living with.
Yeah. And it was funny,
I
just
don't even
hearing
like
like,
her. I don't even like him.
right? I don't want to stay with them.
Yeah, they just won't leave.
Yeah. But it was
No, that's very
pretty cool.
interesting. Yeah, that
You know,
is very interesting because I mean, it would be a lot different to, honestly, I think it would be a harder punishment to get punished by an elder, like
yeah.
that would mean like that would be the worst thing possible that I could ever think of like, wow, they're really mad at me. This is what I have to do.
Right. Like just to give you an example, I had a man recently, a young man, uh second incident within like a month and a half, involving drinking. And in the second incident, he yelled and swung over at his father who was driving, and he punched him. His father's in his mid 70s,
Oh
and
wow.
spit on him. And the guy ended up, just at the initial hearing pleading guilty. And I told him, okay, I said, I'm going to go ahead and accept your plea of guilt. I said, I'd like to ask you a question. He said, yeah. I said, do you like your father? He was like, yeah, I love my dad. I said, then why would you treat him that way and degrade him the way that you did? He's like, I just, I was drinking and, like I didn't know what I was doing. I said, yeah, that's fine if that happened one time, but this is the second incident you have involving your parent. I said, this is abuse at some point. This is no longer just an incident. This is a
Yeah, it's
deliberate
not
choice
a
to
first
continue
offense,
to
yeah.
drink. You're making a deliberate choice to drink, knowing what your behavior is when you choose to overindulge. You're around your father and you're continuing to abuse him and hurt him, by your actions. I said, one of the things I want you to do, because we're, sent him to our drug and alcohol program for an assessment and possible inpatient. But I told him, in addition to that, I said, I'm going to have an elder speak to you about your behavior and the way that we're supposed to be treating our elders. And I said, are you okay with that? And he said, yeah. He said, I am. He said, it's embarrassing though. I said, and that's part of the reason I want you to learn and hear, and somebody else is going to know about what's happening, in your life and with your family. I said, and that's accountability, to have to be accountable to somebody else. He said, it is. He said, I welcome it. He said, because I don't like being the way that I am, and I do want to change. He said, but I'll welcome that. And I said, well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
You
But
instilled a different type of fear in him.
yeah, and the elder will, and that's
Yeah,
just the kind of opportunity that we have to incorporate, traditional concepts that you wouldn't see in a state setting. And hopefully these things and opportunities will be more impactful to change the behavior to a positive way.
right. I hope all the success for that. That I mean, that is something that I would never even have thought of. But I think this is it's a very positive way to move uh, our community and help teach them something different. I like to hear more about that when it does get approval. So thank you for sharing that. So your journey, you started off at a
Mm-hmm.
very young age. You had a lot that you went through in a short amount of time. And I mean, I think that's pretty amazing. So as of right now, how was the transition from Quechan Tribal Court to San Manuel? Like, how did that come about?
That came about actually just by happenstance. I kind of had been watching in Indian country some of the tribes that were progressive and doing a lot of different things, or that seemed to be pretty successful. And San Manuel was one of them, just on the business side and the size of their casino operation and seeing their name in tribal politics. And so I started to look up their court to kind of see what kind of cases they were hearing. And in doing so, I seen that there was a cast, or really they were looking and advertising for a pro tem judge in different areas. They were looking for somebody to deal with tort laws, workmen's compensation, and civil family. I thought, hey, this might be a good opportunity to help out and learn a little bit more in terms of civil family and see what other tribes are doing, as I had already been pro temming for a number of other tribes, not on a regular basis, only on an as needed basis and as a conflict judge for some of the tribes in Arizona. And so I filled out their application and went in for a interview as a pro tem judge to deal with civil family, and they had a chief judge at the time. And when I went in, I met with their business committee, who's essentially their counsel, and one of them had asked me, "Would you be willing to come here full time?" And I said, "No, I'm not interested in coming full time right now. I'm just interested in a part time position." As I was on year one of a 3-year appointment tribe, and they were like, "Well, how about if we had house?" I was like, "Yeah," and I'm still not willing to come because I just did not want to leave the tribe. Money for me has never been an issue. Like, I just really value my people and the
The
opportunity to
people.
serve them, and the pay was sufficient enough for me. Like I said, I live on the reservation in a little hut house, and it's been here for the last 40 years. It was my mom's house, and I inherited it. And we're comfortable. We don't need a lot, so money had not been my issue. But being a successful tribe, they also paid competitive wages, and had asked, and I said no, that I wasn't interested in going. And then the vacancy for the chief judge position came open. I was asked a couple more times about submitting an application. I think it was almost a day or so before the position closed, and I was asked again to just put in an application and come talk to them, and if I got selected for an interview. And so I did. And during the process of the interview, I still had a lot of apprehension, and I was asked very candidly, what's your apprehension or your concern about coming here? I said, for one, I don't know your tribal politics, even though tribal politics don't have a place in the court. I don't know what the overturn or turnover here looks like. I said, because in my own tribal community, I don't play politics. I stay away from tribal issues. I don't go to meetings. I try to be hands off.
Right.
So I don't
Non-biased. Yeah.
put myself in that situation. I said, and I've survived my own tribal community and politics for the last 12 years. So I'm concerned about, coming somewhere new. And one, not being from the tribe. I said, when I've had issues at home, I don't run up with my family, or I don't run up to, make political arguments and issues. I just, again, rely on my work and hope that is enough to help me survive whatever is occurring. I said, and then the other concern would be is I want to continue to be of service to my tribe, and I want to be of service to Indian country. And based on my capacity now, I have that opportunity. But the tribe there was very supportive. They do a lot of work and a lot of philanthropy in Indian country, and they were very interested in having me there as their chief judge. So they're giving me the opportunity to do just that. They're honoring their word and letting me continue. I had my Fridays off there after hours, weekends. The elders at home are willing to accommodate me and meet with me on Saturdays or Sundays, and so we're able to I'm able to still do work with my tribe, and so I really value that opportunity. So I was really excited. But based on the work that we're doing there, what we want to do is we really want to build a model court that Indian country can emulate, or to take the good from what we're doing and hopefully apply it, and they're not having to rebuild and do on their own. So that's some of the work that we're doing there. But it's a pretty exciting opportunity. They're excellent employers. They really value their people, and citizens are very supportive as well as leaders. But I'm thankful to have the opportunity to be there because I've been able to do a lot of impactful work in Indian country.
And again, it all relates back to culture. Culturally, you're working with two tribes because they understand, and if it were outside of that, then there wouldn't be any understanding at that point. I mean, it's just like you come and you're going to serve here and then that's it, right? Do you feel like
Right.
that's how it would be generally?
Yeah, I think generally it would be. I think that's one of the things about Samuel is that, like I said, they do a lot of philanthropy on their own because of the work that they do. They see the need, you know. They're leaders in a lot of different areas, and that's what I really value about them. Like, they're successful in terms of their enterprises and gaming, but beyond that, they share with their brothers and sisters in Indian country. You don't always see a lot of that, and it means a lot to them. So they support the work that I'm trying to do, and they're part of that, vision in terms of seeing the need and hoping for all of us, and they're behind that, and that really made comfortable about going there. I'm gonna say with a private employer, they're like, hey, you're here and that's it. You wouldn't get those opportunities.
What do you wish you would have known when you started out? We just talked about ASU reaching out to you, which is one off. Like it's really not going to happen to anybody else. But during that journey there, what do you think? What information or what advice can you offer to somebody that who is wanting to get into the type of work that you're doing now?
Out more to talk to law students, that were affiliated with any legal programs. I probably talk to tribal judges. There are a lot of people who are willing to mentor and to help our tribal youth, and are even adults or even people in late in life, wanting to get into the field. I think there are a lot of people willing to mentor, share their experiences. And so I think my first thing that I would offer as a suggestion would be to talk to somebody, reach out, let them know what you want to do, and they can maybe share their experience or give you recommendations on ways to go about that. I just met somebody recently, a student at Michigan State University, and she was just doing a research on Indian legal clinics and Indian legal programs in the United States, and she was saying she's having a hard time getting information. I know she's working on centralizing the Indian legal programs and what's available. So people who are interested in school and want to go through an Indian legal program have the opportunity to, work with them, because most of the Indian legal programs aren't law schools but Indian legal programs aren't ranked, and there's some push for that to happen. That'll give you a good indication. If you're not, maybe you're in a position where you don't have the resources or the time, or you're concerned about, taking the full dive into going into law school, but you want to serve in the judicial system in some capacity in the setting. There are a lot of programs and training opportunities to get training. There are a lot of programs available to do, like clerks training programs where you're certificated. There are programs to train you how to hear cases. And so some courts, when they're going with the traditional model and they don't have the requirement, you can learn, those kinds of skills that can help you be an advocate. There's also tribal court advocates, which are lay advocates, but there's a lot of formalized training for them too. So there's a lot of opportunity to get involved, even if you don't want to go to law school, but you want to be a part of that system.
And so what resources would we look for? Just like on a tribal website, somewhere like, do you think like the ASU Indian Law would have a lot of like resources, links, information that people could use to start that process? I mean, that's here in Arizona, but would it be
Yeah,
just going to your tribal website, or talking to or going to the actual tribal courts to ask for like whatever assistance or resources would be available? Would that be like a first step?
yeah, I think that would be a first step, especially depending on where you're located and whether or not you have a tribal court in your area. And the legal programs for most universities that actually have them in place: UNM, ASU, U of A, Michigan State, Seattle State University. There are a lot of different places that have programs in place, UCLA, and they have clinics, and sometimes they'll assist with that too. They're always eager and excited to, share resources and give information. But there's a program out of UC Davis right now that's kind of housing. It's called the Tribal Justice Project, and they're doing a lot of judicial training for tribal court judges. They're doing training for lay people who are interested in how to become a tribal court judge. They're doing training for tribal court clerks, and most of those trainings are for real nominal fees. Recently at San Manuel back in February, and the program I think was like $70, and so it was real reasonable. But it was 2 days of training, and it was a wealth of information and opportunity. But there's a lot of people, like I said, willing to mentor and to share resources. ASU has partnered in, I think they call it the pipeline program, basically the law school, and they offer several weeks in the summer for people who are interested in going into law school, the opportunity to affiliate with this program and go through a training program and to go through like a class. So it's actually like you're being in law school and seeing what that process looks like. And I think also LSAT preparation.
So prepping you for, actually doing the work and basically
Mm-hmm.
seeing if this is going to be the right fit for you.
Right.
But it sounds like, I mean, there's so many other free resources, like you said, like mentorship and whatnot, that people can get in touch with tribal courts, or just like you said, by reaching out and talking to somebody. Like
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity is there, and people are eager to speak with you, especially because we don't have that much representation in the judicial
Right.
system as of now. Thank you for sharing all of that. What's going on now? What's new with you now? You're a professional. You've been doing the work for many, many years now. You've transitioned and you're helping one tribe and well, actually helping two tribes. You've helped several tribes throughout Arizona. I always see on your social media, you're always traveling to powwows. You're entering into contests with bird dancing.
We try to find a gathering every weekend to go to if we can. That's kind of like our center and our balance right there, just being with our people and leaving everything out there, on the on our on our dirt lots and wherever it is we're dancing. Like, we just leave all our bad feelings and bad energy and our sorrow and whatever we have, and so we try to connect every weekend if we can.
So you gotta love that res Wi-Fi. It was breaking up just a little bit. So we were talking about you connecting just about every weekend at any gathering that you could possibly go to, and you were just about to say something about your peon team.
Oh, so my peon team, it's called Peon Till I Die. It's a traditional hand game team, and we're on a three-peat right now. We've been winning and doing pretty good, and we're all excited about that. But we love to be out there by the fires and with the people and hearing, everybody singing simultaneously, from like youth to adult, men and women. And so that's our go-to for the weekends. But for me personally, I've just been on my grind, doing the traditional gatherings, trying to mentor youth, having the awesome opportunity with my position as chief judge with Samuel, and through the project that I participated in a year or so ago with Tribal Justice, the documentary, to really do a lot of speaking and training for not only tribal judges and universities with law programs, but also with state judiciary in a number of states who are interested in restorative justice. I did was on a panel with a couple state judges in New York the year before at the World Trade Center, and I was really excited to see the work that was being done in that community, because they're trying to go to community courts and not just have state courts with formal state judges, but do something similar to what they see happening with tribes. We're actually working with some with Navajo Nation and some of their peacemakers, and with the documentary, one of the judges was sharing that seeing the kind of work that we're doing on tribal courts is really helping them to bring back a level of humanity that has not existed in the state court system for a long time. And she said it's been long overdue, and it's been very empowering for them as judicial officers. But I'm really excited to have been part of that project, and that's a
And
lot
what
of.
was it called?
It's called Tribal Justice. It's a documentary. It was part of the POV series for PBS. And I think for the next year and a half, they still have rights to it, but it's also available on a website called Make Peace Productions.
Yeah, Make Peace Productions. I just watched that last night actually, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So that's been a good opportunity and a catalyst for me to go out and speak and to some really different groups of people that I didn't anticipate, like United States Attorney's Office, I think in Arizona. Some of the programs there and some of the tribes were using the film for reentry purposes, and just to see how it's impacted and been able to help a lot of things. It's exciting to see the collaboration that state courts are wanting to have with tribal courts right now because of that kind of work and the exposure through that film. So, been doing a lot of that. Of course, been very vocal lately on a lot of the MMIWG, and MMIP issues. Um, Trying to just speak out and bring awareness and hopefully change the course of our people by bringing about that awareness and more attention to that issue, and hopefully resources, so we don't have to live in fear.
Yeah, and so where have you been speaking about that, or where have you like what gatherings have you went to as far as that MMIWG?
I just spoke at the statewide eco conference at Paula Casino Resort on the Paula Indian Reservation in California. about a month ago, and I'm gonna be speaking at San Diego State University. I believe there's a gathering or a convention coming that they've asked me to speak about that on, and then on September 4th, I'll be speaking to the California Child Welfare Council. I'm a part of the council. I'm an appointed member of the council, but the CSEC committee, which is the Commercial and Sexually Exploited Children Committee, has asked for a presentation and information with regards to MMIW based on the fact that California is one of the top 5 states where we're seeing a lot of occurrences of this happening, predominantly in Northern California, but they're wanting to also talk about the issue. And so that's some of that. I'm got an article coming out on 360 Law. Um, there's going to be an online article for that, and that was in relation to domestic violence issues and restraining orders and the issues that we're still facing and challenges that we have for that issue. But that should be coming out, I believe, probably within the next month or so.
So I want to circle back and talk about MMIW and this huge epidemic that's coming to light. It's getting more and more publicity these days. And I just wanted to see what your take is on it, as well as like what information do you know about the database?
The MMIW database that was created and it's housed in by a nonprofit called Sovereign Bodies Institute. Sovereign
I,
Bodies
yeah, I
Institute.
think that's what it is.
Yeah, Sovereign Bodies Institute is housed in Seventh Generation Fund, but it's a separate organization within Seventh Generation. And Nita Lucchesi, who created the MMIW base, is actually the executive director of SBI, and I'm actually a board member. And so she, on her own, based on her own personal experience and the things that she faced as a indigenous trafficked woman, created the database as part of her graduate studies and work. And it's really launched into something bigger than that. And that, along with the 71 city report that she co-authored with the Urban Indian Health Institute out of Seattle, has really been a catalyst to see the legislation happen nationwide, and hopefully more legislation in states, and then with the federal government to create task force and to create more resources and focus on the issue. But yeah, the MMIW database is housed there and maintained by SBI, primarily because, and it's not readily shareable. A lot of academia and media just asking for access, but
Hmm.
that information is sacred information. Families shared personal information, and there's a lot of different data included within the entry, including traditional and tribal names that they have them. But in order to get the information from the family, there had to be a strong basis and assurance that that was going to be maintained and protected. So SBI, on a as needed basis and only after review, will release information from there. But it's at least given us a start and opportunity to kind of see how big of an epidemic and issue that this is. By In large part, they still we don't have enough information, and some of that's data driven, meaning like forms don't have sections where they can actually take information and indicate that somebody's native when they're a victim or they're
Right. There's always an
processed.
other or
Yeah,
maybe put into
exactly.
another category like white. Because Navajo Nation, they just recently released something where they can alert, like they're sending out like text messages or whatnot,
Right.
so that's actually alerting people. Because I mean, that's another big area that this is. I mean, all over. It's an epidemic all over. But do you ever
Right.
think that our tribe or like working with Salmon Well, do you ever think that we're going to be able to create a system to where we can alert, the people as far as like via text message or some sort of like when you see on TV sometimes like they're looking for a blue truck and this is a license plate number. Do you think that will ever
Right.
come about in on our nation and others?
I believe so. I think there's a lot of push. I think with the sophistication of tribes and hopefully centralizing and supporting and uniting, that we're going to get to that place. That's one of the big things I've been pushing for is unity. There's a lot of tribes doing good work, a lot of organizations doing good work, but not a lot of coordination and solidarity in Indian country. And I know I recently, months ago, put out a call on Facebook, social media, hey, who's interested in organizing Indian country? And we got so many organizations and people doing work individually, but not always
Not
collectively,
together.
but centralizing that information, making those resources available and connecting people. That's going to be powerful when we
Like a
unite. So
one-stop hub, like a one-stop shop type of
exactly,
place. Yeah.
it's
That
gonna take a lot of resources to make it happen, but I think there are people definitely willing to call and serve in a way where they're willing to put in the work to make that happen. So, yeah, I definitely envision that happening, and I think we're getting closer to it. Just on the judicial side and law enforcement side, we are gaining greater access to systems that were not readily available. State of California has some pilot systems in place for registration of protective orders. It's a lot of protocol and process to make it happen, but at least they're looking at the issue and trying to implement programs to figure out a way to make that happen. So change is coming. Change is slow, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's been swept under the rug far too long, and I'm glad that we are
Exactly.
actually seeing it come to light as of now. So, I mean, thank you for all your
Yes.
knowledge. Thank you for everything that you've been speaking upon here. I do respect your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Any
If I can leave a message to people, whoever might be listening to this, in terms of seeing some of the work that I'm doing, like, or wants to look me up, you can probably look me up or Google me, and I'm gonna pop up somewhere. What I was gonna say is that when you're thinking about doing the work or you're thinking about going to school, like, quit thinking about it and just do it. Like, I'm just like a lot of people who might be thinking about it. I'm raised, born and lived on my reservation my entire life, other than for leaving up here to school. And a lot of dysfunction in my own family. I'm thankful to have had a very stable mom. But I lost my dad early on to a drug overdose, cocaine and heroin, and grew up in a lot of dysfunction. And so I'm not really an exception. If I can do it, so can you. And so, to my res people and people who are doubting themselves and have those self-worth issues, just go out there and make it happen and don't give up. That's what I want to say.
hope that whoever is listening to this or that will listen to this will take those words and into consideration, and hopefully it will inspire you to get up and move and just to actually get up and do the work. Nobody ever is going to hand you anything on a silver platter.
The struggles of our ancestors, they didn't fight for everything they did to leave us in the condition we're in. We got to get ourselves out of it. We got to do better. That's just like them struggling and sacrificing in vain if we do nothing with what they left us.
The only thing left to say is if anybody wants to take on her peon championship team, then
That's right.
come for her
Bring it
right
on,
now.
son.
Where can they find you? What
Bring
what's
it
what's the
on.
next powwows you're going to be going to or next gatherings?
We're hitting up Verona this weekend, and then she's after Verona. I know there's Verona this weekend. There's Morongo in September. That's a big powwow and peon tournament. Viejas coming up, I think, in August. So we'll be out in Southern California at these peon tournaments, and always looking to take on new teams. So bring it on.
Someone out there,
All right.
please accept this challenge. And that's going to do it for this episode of Resilient. Thank you for joining me on Chief Judge White's journey. So do me a favor, like and share to get the word out. And until next time on Resilient.
There were people here. And these people that lived here, basically, there were many cultures and many languages. But they were the people of this land base. And almost universally within this concept, they always referred to themselves in their own languages or culture as the people, the human beings. But that was always a part of the self-identification, the identification of self, the people. And the Europeans came and they refused to recognize us as the people. They called us Indian.